Dun 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 dun. We're streaming. We're streaming. Yeah, we're streaming right now. We're streaming. We're streaming to bring capitalism down. That didn't quite work. That didn't quite work. That one. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Here we are, streaming away today. No TikTok today, for obvious reasons. I got banned. My live stream got banned on TikTok. It turns out that if you call a Nazi on TikTok, you'll get banned. Isn't that great? Isn't that great how that actually works? Isn't it wonderful how TikTok actually does protect Nazis and fascists? Isn't that super cool how that works? We're live. You got it, Led. You got it. We're here. We're here streaming today. We're streaming today. We're streaming today. Today, we're going to start biggest dumpster diving haul of my life. We've got enough to feed 4 households, totally 15 people for weeks, and barely made a dent in everything they were throwing out due to an overnight electricity failure. Like, we throw away so much food in this country. I should actually look it up. Like, how much food do we throw away in America? 119 billion pounds of food waste is wasted in the United States, equates to 130 billion meals and more than $408 billion in food throwaway. Shockingly, nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted. Like, this is a wild statistic. This is a wild thing. Sarah Carvalho. Good evening to you, Sarah. Good to see you. Love the icon. Well done. You've done it. Grinning. How about that handshake between China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia? I saw that and laughed at the U.S.'s failure. Yeah. Like, you've even now got people like, I've seen Trevor Noah, literally The Daily Show, talking about it now. Cotton, good to see you, bud. Yeah, no China, no peace. No China, no peace. Like, yeah, I've seen people saying like Saudi Arabia isn't even picking up the phone anymore to talk to America. That America is just kind of being put in its place a little bit. What's like, I think the rest of the world has finally reached that critical mass point where they're like, oh, we don't need to put up with these guys anymore. That it's dangerous for us to put up with these guys. Biden doesn't even have the decency to be embarrassed. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and the worst thing that we're seeing right now, Russian ruble fell to its lowest level in over last year, 80 rubles to the dollar. I don't know. We're all supposed to look at that and be like, oh no, 80 rubles to the dollar. I remember the Canadian dollar has been like, I remember when I was a kid, it was like 68 cents, 69 cents to the American dollar. So like, ruble's doing just fine as far as I'm concerned. The euro is sitting at what, like 87 euros, 87.5 euros to the dollar. Yeah, the working class is waking up all around the world. Oh yeah. This is the thing that I really want to talk about today, Sarah. This is the one that I was really interested in discussing today. The protest at BlackRock offices in Paris. Protesters storm BlackRock's Paris office, holding red flares and firing smoke bombs. Like, when people start talking about the Illuminati or like people are always trying to find what the center of power actually is, right? And quite often, but yeah, why aren't Canadians doing this to Galen? Yeah, there you go. Good question. Like, where is the center of power? Really? And my position has always been, or I shouldn't say has always been, but has definitely become, well, the center of power is the people who own everything. And certainly the people who own everything in the society, or at least the people who are managing everything, right? It's BlackRock and Vanguard. These are huge multinational corporations and hedge funds that have control over trillions of dollars of assets and funds. And looks like the people of Paris are starting to realize, oh, wait, we should go to where the owners are. Like, we should go to where the assets are being held. And we should cause these organizations problems. Right? And we should. Like, no question. Like, BlackRock and Vanguard, in my opinion, like, we should not be discussing the WEF as much as we do. I love the right wingers when they get talking about the WEF, as if the WEF is anything other than just like a bunch of creepy weirdos. Like, they're a think tank organization. It would be like saying like the Fraser Institute is in charge, you know? And I'm just like, not really. Like, they're just creepy weirdos who are trying to convince us to do a bunch of creepy weirdo stuff. These are the guys that would actually do the creepy weirdo stuff. Like, these are the guys that actually implement those ideas. Here, what do we got? Demonstrators forced their way into the building that houses BlackRock's office in Paris, taking their protest against the government's pension reforms to the world's biggest money manager. Video shared on social media showed protesters entering the senatorial office block, located near the Opera Garden Opera House, holding red flares and firing smoke bombs. About 100 people, including representatives of several labor unions, were on the ground floor of the building for about 10 minutes, chanting anti-reform slogans. BlackRock's office is located on the 3rd floor. The meaning of this action is quite simple. We went to the headquarters of BlackRock to tell them, the money of workers for our pensions, they are taking it. Jerome Schmidt, spokesman for the French union SUD, told CNN affiliate. BlackRock declined to comment. Yeah, why would BlackRock need to comment? They have CNN doing their talking for them. Like, BlackRock owns these organizations. It doesn't need to comment. Nationwide protests against the French government's plan to raise the retirement age for most workers from 62 to 64 have now entered their 11th day. The government triggered special constitutional powers last month to push the controversial legislation through Parliament without a vote. If you ask me, this is the reason for the protests more than anything else. Like, the raising of the retirement age is one thing, but the fact that they literally pushed this legislation through without a vote, like, no thanks. Like, oh, so much for a democracy. Like, so much for that idea. Adam, good to see you. Rusty, Isaac, good to see you guys. The ruble is at 12 cents USD. Historically, it's been around 13 cents USD. Huge victory for the West. It only cost $100 billion to get that penny. Yeah, exactly. Sarah says, have you seen any James Raywald's videos? He talks about the monopolies of multinational companies and TikTok and Twitter. I have never seen James Raywald's stuff. If that's what he's doing good work. Saudi Arabia's new national anthem, Dancing with a Stranger. On the Bird app, someone suggested that CNN only covered the French protests today because protesters occupied BlackRock. Oh, I'm saying it now. Yeah. I don't know how much CNN... Oh, my dog is getting real playful. Dog's real playful. Yeah, isn't it funny that it's when I start talking that you get to be like, I should just start talking to you more often, buddy. Because that's when you get real like, oh my goodness, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. Hey, everybody, Milo thinks that I'm talking to him. And maybe I am. It's just you and me here, isn't it, Milo? Yeah, there aren't hundreds of people watching from around the world, tuning in to see what this guy thinks about stuff. Things are going well, Rusty. Things are going well. I've had a relaxing 3 days. I'm not looking forward to going back to the capitalism, but such as it is, such as it is. My schedule has finally, my schedule fell right out of balance and right out of whack because of a crisis that happened at my work, and so they asked me to work shifts I usually don't work in order to cover. But now it looks like things are stabilizing, so I'm going to go back into my regular routine again, which means I'm going to be able to do Monday night show again, and I'm going to be able to re-engage and start producing that content again, which is something that I haven't been able to do for a couple of months now, in fact. Because, that's capitalism, isn't it? Like, one thing goes wrong, and it just cascades, and it cascades, and it cascades, and it cascades. And finally now, and to get to that point where I'm finally back to being able to stream for Mondays is it took, pretty persistent. I had to pretty persistently be like, hey, when is this going to be resolved? This isn't what I signed up for. And, but, so that's good news. I'm looking forward to getting back into that routine and to getting back into how I used to be, which is going to be nice. Isaac, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines are being groomed to wage war against China because they realized Americans will not fight. Yeah, America's not fighting, dude. And even if Americans were interested in the fight, 77% of them are not fit. This is sort of the hilarious part about the military-industrial complex is that we've ceded so much power and authority to people who are happily poisoning us and happily destroying our food distribution and happily destroying the food that we get, right? They're just feeding us unhealthy garbage, high sugar, high fat, high fructose corn syrup, all this kind of ridiculous bullshit that they're just jamming into our diet to make us all fat, full of mental illnesses, doing everything they can to make things as bad as possible for us. And then they're turning around and saying, now go fight and die for it. And even if there was a will amongst the populace to do so, most people can't do it because they've been poisoned by the very people who are trying to get them to fight. It just shows you the truth of what I've been saying this whole time, which is that we are stupid. We are stupid. What kind of a military and what kind of an organization that relies heavily on a volunteer force their whole goal and their whole strategy for all of their international politics is to get people to volunteer for the military. What kind of a people would basically make it so that nobody could actually do the job? That's America, baby. That's America. That's what they've done. And so this is their only option, right? They've got to get Japan and South Korea and all these other places to actually do the fight because they're not going to be able to get Americans to do it. And honestly, if I was Japan and South Korea, what are you fighting over? What are you fighting for? What's the fight actually about? Why are you picking up a gun? What are you doing? Rusty says, I'm in between jobs. The old capitalist master said to the streets with you. Now I got to rent myself to a new master. Yay, employer-employee relationships. Yep. And in no way is this a slave system. Pay no attention to the fact that you are renting yourselves to owners. Pay no attention to the fact that you are actually not taken care of in this society. That your owner can say to you, fend for yourself. And you can just be told, go fucking die. Have you read about the Philippines Popular Army and the Maoist revolutionaries that are getting closer to the capital? No. Oh, well. That sounds fun. So what I just read there was America backs a separatist group within a country. That's more or less. And it's the Maoists, eh? Maoist revolutionaries. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to go well for them. I'm sure that they're going to take power, and it's definitely going to work out the way that they think it's going to work out. Wouldn't that be wild, though? Wouldn't it be wild if like the in the Philippines there was like a Maoist army that took over and they implemented a bunch of Maoist policies with the help of America, because America wanted to go after China using the Philippines, but then once these guys take over, they're basically just like, no, we'll just take the Philippines. We don't need to fight China. Which would be like standard fare, right? Like how many times has America had to go in to clean up a mess that they created? That they give a bunch of weapons and guns to like some far-right kooky group of nut jobs who take over and then start acting like far-right crazy nut job kooky right-wingers and doing things that America doesn't like. And so America has to fund some other organization to go in and like clean up the mess that they themselves created in the first. Like this is Saddam Hussein. Like Saddam Hussein was America's man. That they funded Saddam Hussein, and Saddam Hussein took over, and then they had to go in with their like proper military to clean up the mess that they themselves created by funding this guy Saddam Hussein. Like it's ridiculous. Ooh, the U.S. Okay, I'm wrong. Conton says the USA is playing ball with the Philippines government to get a base there. The Maoists might actually be a wild card problem. So the Maoists might actually be the wrench in the whole thing. So it's probably the Chinese backing the Maoists then. I don't know nearly enough about this, guys. Like, honestly, I don't know nearly enough about this. I'll be straight with you. I'll be really straight. I have not been like paying that close attention to what's been going on in the Philippines. That perhaps I should, right? It is one of like, it's right in it. Like it's right in the whole thing. Yeah, why would the U.S. back a leftist faction of any kind? Good point, looking to see. Good point. Yeah. I don't know, dude. America's stupid. That's why. That's why, dude. That America is like they're literally just like, oh, you don't like government? We don't like money for you. Go take government. It's true though. Like the U.S. would probably be like, we've got to choose between negotiating with the government that's in power or giving money to Nazis. Money to Nazis or negotiating with a leftist government. Ben, are you from Winnipeg or another part of Manitoba? I am from small town Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, and not even the town itself. I lived 10 to 15 minutes outside of Portage la Prairie, Manitoba. I was raised a very rural, conservative, fundamentalist Christian. I went to a school that was a fundamentalist Christian school, a part of the Anglican churches, which is the same churches that Stephen Harper is affiliated with. I went to school through that church because it offered a schooling. I was part of the largest graduating class the school ever had, and it was 21 kids. And is the communist movement very developed in Portage? I should say not. That I would describe Manitoba largely. I shouldn't say this. That Manitoba is moving. Like the next government that Manitoba is electing is an NDP government. That the Conservatives have fallen out of favor by a lot for obvious reasons, and that the Manitoba is actually taking seriously some very leftist ideas that, especially in the truth and reconciliation space, that the rest of the country has basically been like, yeah, truth and reconciliation, whatever. Manitoba is like, no, truth and reconciliation. Like we need to discuss what happened in Manitoba. That the 60s scoop was a very real thing that happened in Manitoba. And I think the worst part about the 60s scoop and about living in the prairie provinces when I was growing up, certainly, is that there was and there still is, a persistent denial of the impact of the 60s scoop and what it really meant for the indigenous population in Manitoba. And so recently, within the last 10 years, Winnipeg has built a human rights museum and has like an entire section dedicated to the residential school system, to the 60s scoop, is very upfront about the government and the Catholic Church's role in the 60s scoop. Could probably do a little bit better of a job in critiquing the transition of the residential school from the residential school system from the Catholic Church to the government. That the residential school system really wasn't abolished in Canada; it was just nationalized, and that there are good people. I know people who work within that system that say very clearly, like, yeah, that we are still doing the same stuff. Like, it's a little cleaner, it's a little bit more formal now. That we're not letting kids just go and live in squalor and die of typhoid and all that kind of stuff. But the process of it is very, like, it's turned into something of a feedback loop. The whole rationale of taking a kid away from an abusive environment, but the reason why it's an abusive environment is because we took these kids away from the environment, and the reason we did that is because we insisted it was an abusive environment. Like, it's got like a cycle effect that's very obvious to people who work in it and care, that we are creating a self-reinforcing problem. And so these things are being acknowledged throughout Manitoba. What do you think it would take to move the prairies away from the CPC? I mean, I'm sort of describing what's happening in Manitoba, where the Conservatives, it's a Conservative province right now, but it's going to become NDP. And I think people are starting to recognize, and Manitoba's a very small place. It's a small place with actually a fairly strong art scene. And there's not a lot of people there, and so good ideas are able to spread faster. And you still have like the rural farmer mindset, which, you know, is essentially you just need to work hard on land your dad gave you for free, and government handouts are bad unless it's to my family, so that exists. But the towns and cities, of course, you know, where most people live, are going to be voting NDP, and they're going to be voting for a fellow by the name of Wab Kinew. And Wab Kinew is all tied up in this truth and reconciliation idea. And he's going to be the first, I believe he's Métis, and I think he'll be the first, is he Métis? Anyway, I think he's going to be the first First Nations premier in Manitoba since Louis Riel. And Louis Riel is just like an enormously inspirational figure in his own right. Indigenous. Yeah, my mistake. And and so this sort of shows you the seriousness that's going on. And I know that the last time I was in Manitoba, like, there was like real infrastructure being built, and there were real things that were happening to try to acknowledge, not just acknowledge what has happened in terms of the abstract nature of it, right? Just do land acknowledgements and it'll be over. But there's actual like material, like, we're building infrastructure, we're building projects, we're ceding territory, we're doing these sorts of things, because I think it's being taken very seriously in Manitoba, and it's something that I'm quite proud of Manitoba of. That the last time I remember growing up, there always was, any time you encountered a First Nations person, that there always was this real barrier, and there always was this sense of distrust and side-eyeing that would happen. And the last time I was there, that didn't seem to be the case. There didn't seem that side-eyeing didn't seem to exist so much, and that the vibe was definitely cleaner in that regard. Which isn't to say it's perfect, obviously. Like a small town Manitoba, there's all kinds of people who still are stuck in this. Well, these Indians just need to work harder. They're just lying around getting drunk all the time. It's like, yeah, like they're dealing with an enormous trauma, like a massive, massive, overwhelming trauma that we have inflicted upon them. That, yeah, like I remember when I was growing up, we would always drive through this First Nations reserve, and there was a house basically in the middle of a plain, and every time we drove by that house, something had been destroyed. That the person that lived there, the First Nations gentleman that lived there, was obviously destroying the house. And my dad would occasionally complain to be like, we give that, like, our taxes give that guy that house and he just destroys it, and we're going to give him another house. And it's so silly. He should just get a job, get his act together. That kind of attitude. And since I've learned about the 60s scoop, and since I've learned that that gentleman went through the 60s scoop, my attitude steadily became, you're goddamn right, he's going to destroy that house. You're goddamn right he's going to destroy that house, and you're goddamn right we're going to give him another house. Like, you can't just kick in somebody's door and have priests and RCMP officers kidnapping people, right? And then what? You're going to turn around and be like, hey, it's all good, here's a house. So he's going to live in the house given to him by his kidnappers, and everything's cool, right? Everything's cool now, totally normal, right? Yeah, no, you're goddamn right he's going to destroy that house. He should destroy that house, and we're going to give him another house. And if you don't want to have First Nations people destroying houses you're paying for with your taxes, then maybe don't kick in their door and kidnap them in the first place. Maybe this will teach you something. But the trouble with that idea of maybe it'll teach you something is that it's the very people who need to learn the lesson the hardest, far-right conservatives, who deny that the event occurred, or just pretend like it didn't matter. Right? Like, just pretend like it doesn't matter at all. And that it's like, oh, well, bad things happen to everybody. Even if they do acknowledge it. Bad things happen to everybody. You just need to bootstrap yourself and stand up straight on the land that your daddy gave you for free. Like, that's all. It's, but so that attitude is sort of dying away in Manitoba because it's becoming hysterically obvious. There's an Indigenous or First Nations painter, Ken Monk House Paintings. Is this the guy? Am I screwing it up? Ken Monk First Nations Paintings. Kent Monkman. There it is. Kent Monkman. Are they going to show me some examples? No. Kent. I was close. Kent Monkman. Yeah. And these paintings are becoming very, very poignant. And it's very, very difficult to, like, deny what's right in front of your eyes, right? To deny what is... to deny something that had to have happened, right? To deny these events, and I think it's useful for conservative types to see these sorts of pictures, and to actually understand, like, these sorts of things happened, like literally while the Beatles were touring America, this was happening. Like, it's crazy. And what's extra crazy about it is that I wasn't taught that in school. I was given the most absolute bullshit narrative possible about what was going on with the First Nations communities. I was given this absolute horseshit narrative that like literally like a fascist explanation. 1000%. Don't think I've ever seen you here before, bud. Good to see you. Strong first comment. Yeah. Why aren't Gen Z breaking windows at BlackRock's office in Ontario or in Toronto? Come on, kids. Don't you want a future? I think Manitoba's a bit better because they don't have oil. Yeah, I think that's probably part of it, Ben. Good evening, Tinker. Good to see you, bud. Like, and yeah, I mean, the lack of oil, definitely, I think, because I think the people, like, oil has created in us a kind of mania, frankly, like a type of hysteria that just is we know that that's the spice, like the spice must flow, right? That we know that it's that here's this mystical compound that we've stumbled upon, and we are as necromancers, basically. Like, we need it. We need it to fuel all of our toys, right? And so we're dredging up the corpses of the dead in order to funnel our infernal dark machines so that we can have superpowers. Like, that's what we're all about. What's Manitoba's main industry? Agriculture. Like, that's what Manitoba does. Manitoba produces food. That's Manitoba's got the land. That's what Manitoba has always done. And the system by which they did it, and I'll tell everybody this until I'm red in the face, until the end of time. It might be the very last thing that I say with my dying breath, that the people who own the land in Manitoba, right, so these rural farmer types, these conservative types, are beneficiaries of the Canadian Dominion Act, which is an enormous government handout, that if you were a white British man and you were willing to move out to the prairies, you could get 360 acres of free land. That, like, you had to spend like $100 as a fee, as an application fee or something like this. But then you took whatever you had, whatever cart you had, or you got into some kind of caravan or something, and then you traveled from Ontario to Manitoba, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. 360 acres of free land. And this is the thing that I keep ruddering into when I find these Petersonian types, these people who are just work hard, bootstraps, better job. That it's not about working hard. Like, these guys are like, you want to tax my hard labor, all this. Yeah, in the U.S., right, the Euro settlers and pilgrims, it was called the Homesteaders Act in the United States. It's a very similar act, though. Very similar idea. And the right wants to hyper-focus on hard work. You just need to work harder, hard work. Work hard, that's how it is. I worked hard, you need to work hard, right? That kind of thing. While failing to acknowledge that nobody denies that you need to work hard at the thing that you want to do. Like, that's there's no denial of that whatsoever. The denial is what happens on the right, where the right doesn't acknowledge that they had the opportunity to have their hard work benefit them. That's the difference. That these rural farmer types are major beneficiaries and able to work hard on land that they were given for free, basically. And now, what's going on across most of the prairies is that all of this land is getting sold to massive corporate conglomerates. That, like, I literally have in my family people who were born with land. They were just born with acres and acres of land. They, farmed it, of course. But it's not like they were like, got to get huge bumper crops and oh my god, we got like these guys get their winters off, right? They're not like I really hate to break it to you. Like, I think that people who work at cafes work harder than farmers in Manitoba. Like, for real. I think that if you walk into your average cafe and you look at an average cafe worker, and then if you looked at what the average farmer is actually doing, you would realize pretty quickly that, the average farmer is like, yeah, he's getting up early, but he's got like big machinery and tractors and things like this. Like he's not sweating, like he's not killing himself. And then of course they get huge swaths of time off, right? Like these are the hard realities of these guys, and I wouldn't gripe about any of this except they're the ones that are telling us that government handouts are bad, while sitting on huge tracts of land, right? And then what do? They've all turned around, and this is what they're doing. They're getting into quote unquote retirement age, so they're turning 40, right? And they're turning around and selling that land, and they're selling it for millions of dollars. So these guys are basically born with millions of dollars in their pocket, given to them for free from their dad, because their dad was a major beneficiary of a enormous government handout, and they're all complaining about how government handouts are bad. Like this is what's hysterical to me about people like Jordan Peterson, because that's Jordan Peterson's entire trajectory. That's his entire trajectory. Like that's how his family had a ranch. That's how and the land that he's going to get from his daddy, he's going to turn around and sell or retire onto this ranch that he got for free, right? Like that's all these guys. That's all of them. And so versus subsistence farmers in the global south who actually have back-breaking labor, and prairie YouTube people love to buy boats and drive them into the lake with their F-150s, complete with F Trudeau and I Heart Oil and gas bumper stickers. Yeah, dude. Like, it's pretty wild. Like, it's pretty wild that looking at it from the outside, it looks manic. Like, it just looks manic. Like, especially the oil people, right? The F Trudeau crowd and all this kind of stuff. It's like, these people look crazed. They look nuts, right? Like if what you're doing is driving around in a truck that's 10 times bigger than anything you'd ever need to use, and you don't actually use it for any hauling or purpose, it's literally just a status symbol, and you have an F Trudeau sticker on the back of it, right? And you're driving around with this thing. It's like, you look nuts. You look like you're driving around in a truck that's bigger than a World War II tank, or that is the same size rather as a World War II tank, and it's just like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah, most farmers are in debt. Yeah, machinery, and like. The real truth about that, about farmers complaining that they're in debt and all of this, like, come on, they're leveraging their land. They're leveraging their land for liquid capital, is what they're doing, right? So they're saying to a bank, hey, I have 100 acres of land. Can I get a loan, leveraging the land against the loan, in order to get, exactly as you say, more machinery and new ways to automate and new ways to operate. Like that's what these guys are all doing. Like they're not in a sorry, sad position or anything like this. Like if it all collapsed and went tits up, which there's so many government subsidies on farming, like you have to subsidize farming. Like you can't not subsidize farming. This is another part of the whole thing I think is just so fucking ridiculous. Like farming is one of the most heavily subsidized industries in Canada. And for good reason. Like, you have to do it. You can't just have a year where farmers starve. Like, that's just not real. That's just not a thing that you can do. Like, you need those people there. You need them to be in place. You need them to be producing food. You need these things to have a stable society, to have a fed populace. Like, nothing's more important than having farmers in place who are actually doing it. So when these farmers all talk about how government handouts are bad and all this, it's like, nobody gets more handouts than a fucking farmer. Nobody gets more handouts than a fucking farmer. Like this ridiculous, absurdist idea that we should withhold like free education from people because handouts are bad, coming from people who get the biggest handouts possible, living on land given to them by the government. Like it's just outrageous to me. It's outrageous that we tolerate it. It's outrageous that we listen to these people. It's outrageous that they can say this stuff without being checked. That we're not looking back at them being like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's It's just the truth to them as far as they're concerned. It's just how it is. I hope to see it from the outside one day. I mean, just detach. Just detach. Where are you, Ben? Isaac, I'm working as a tax pro at HR Block, and I have never seen people more screwed up than natives. Even immigrants that arrived just a few years ago are doing better than them. Yeah. The First Nations populace went through an enormous trauma. Like an enormous trauma. Like it can't be overstated. Like an entire generation of people that experienced a mass kidnapping. Huge, like, communities of people who literally had RCMP officers and priests kicking in their doors and stealing their children away. Right? Like, if you're gonna stand in front of me and say that doesn't mess people up, then I don't know what to tell you. Hey Vince, how you doing? Long time no see. RFK is running for president. Who's RFK? Robert Fakuk Klemensky? I don't know what I'm saying. Reginald JFK's nephew? Oh, sure. Okay. JFK's nephew, RFK, is running for Bobby Kennedy's son. Sure, so he's pulling a Trudeau, is what he's doing. He's like, Kennedy. People know the Kennedy name. I could make a presidential run based on name recognition. The Kennedys are like notoriously, like, they're not royalty, but they have a kind of, like, JFK is still a very popular president in the minds of the people. There's huge segments of the population that like are like hand on heart. America would be better if not for the assassination of JFK, that kind of thing, right? RFK's big on conspiracy theories. Which party? Is it going to be Democrats? I've seen Trump people claim that JFK himself is still alive and is president. That JFK is he's the one. JFK is ruling from behind the scenes secretly. People wanted Jimmy Dore to run, but he said he wouldn't because of the coverage. I mean, Jimmy Dore doesn't want to be the president. Come on. Like, there's first of all, there's no way that Jimmy Dore would win. And then, Jimmy Dore doesn't want to be the fucking president. I think Jimmy Dore's doing exactly what Jimmy Dore wants to do. RFK Jr. is an anti-vaxxer, so he's going to do very well in the Republican Party. Is he running in the Republican Party? Is he running as an independent? Like, which party is he running for? At 105 years old. RFK running for president. Let's take a look. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. files paperwork to run for president as a Democrat. Very good. Very good. It really does look like Biden's going to step down, eh? Like, it really does look like, I think everybody in the party, it's like 60% of people in the Democratic Party are just like, fuck this place, like, fuck this whole thing. I think that the establishment is very concerned about who they're going to put up. It's a rumor. He hasn't filed the paperwork or anything like that, but there's a rumor that's persisting that I keep hearing. So I'll be very clear with you. This isn't me saying Biden is stepping down. This is me saying I've been hearing from lots of different sources and lots of different people that there's speculation that Biden will step down. That rather than running another campaign, rather than going through the process again. Like, the guy is a bag of bones. He's a skeleton, essentially, right? Like, he's not capable of running another election, you know? That, like, near as I can tell, Biden, they basically just put Biden in a freezer. He just is in a bed, basically, most of the time, and they just wheel him out for things here and there. Like, Biden is not a very active president. Like, he's not there making decisions, doing jobs, and all that kind of stuff. Like, they get him out there for, like, speeches every so often. But, like, he's not really in charge. Everybody knows that he's not in charge. People in the party itself, like if you poll Democrats, 60% of Democrats are saying we want Biden to be gone. So within the party itself, there's this idea of getting rid of Joe Biden, and I just don't think Biden's got it in him anymore. Like, he's and are you really actually interested in seeing Biden v. Trump too, especially after Biden's record? Like, that a lot of, I think, what pushes Biden over the top is this will push Biden to the left narrative that came out. That everybody was like, sure, Biden is kind of on the right, but we'll push him to the left. Well, that's been a failure, fairly obviously a failure. That the Ukraine war began under Biden, well, didn't begin under Biden, it began, but in any case, as far as Americans are concerned, it began under Biden. The Willow expansion happened, the Ohio derailment happens under Biden, and Biden just looks demented. He looks demented. He doesn't look like he's in charge. And I think that there are a lot of Democratic people that are seeing that are seeing blood in the water. And so there's likely going to be a convention. Like, you've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. filing papers. I've seen this woman, Marianne Williams. I see her, Marianne Williamson. She keeps talking about how she's running and how she wants to, official presidential, right? So you've got her, you've got Bernie. So there is going to be some kind of internal convention in the Democratic Party that I don't think the Democrats themselves are just going to be like, yes, Biden, King Biden, please run the next campaign against Donald Trump or DeSantis, King Biden, right? I think that they are going to, yeah, of course Vosh did. He's a fucking asset. Like, he's admitted to being an FBI snitch, so he's clearly an asset. Like, and of course, someone like Vosh is going to get popular in America. He's being backed. Like, if somebody gave me even $2,000 a month, I'd be doing this all the time. So it makes total sense that someone like Vosh would become popular online with FBI support. Yeah, Biden's kind of funny. People try to ask him about Trump, and he just smiles and looks confused. Yeah, and the truth, I think, is that people are just tired of it. You know, like it is all starting to come to a head for a lot of Democratic voters, for a lot of people who are on the left. That, like, a lot. I think the way that I would think about it is like it looks like the right is finally doing what the right wants to do, which is be Nazis and be fascists, right? So the left is thinking like, hey, can we get the leftist version of that? Can we actually get some movement to the left? Can we actually go? Can we really actually seriously go? Like, yes, we are serious about the environment. Yes, we are serious about the drug epidemic. Yes, we are serious about gun registration. Like, yes, we are serious about this stuff. But instead of that, we're voting Biden. And I just think that there's a lot of people who, I think that there are a lot of people who are tired of it and are ready to put their chips in with somebody else who might actually do something different. Like, people want this neoliberal era to be over, because the neoliberal era is over, but they want it to be reflected in their politics, and and to answer your question, Ben, how similar do you think our situation is? Well, I think a big reason why we're seeing an upswell of support for conservatives is because conservatives are talking as though the neoliberal period is over. That Justin Trudeau is this person who's like, hand on the wheel, keep moving forward, everything is totally fine, piecemeal reformism, getting pushed to the left by the NDP kind of stuff, and people are just getting exhausted with it. Like literally exhausted. People are just getting to a point where they're saying, like, you're not acknowledging that these major crises that are happening in our lives. Like, inflation is a real thing that's happening to everybody. Like, and I get comments on it all the time that people are like, oh, prices going up. And you're like, yeah, prices are going up. And you know why prices are going up? Because the people who own these companies are just jacking prices. Like, there's no fucking mystery to this anymore. Like, there's no fucking mystery to this. That if you're sitting there pretending as though what's happening is anything other than corporations jacking prices because they can, you're a dupe. Like, you're a dupe. I haven't heard anything about Vosh since 2020, 21. I think he must have fallen off. Honestly, if you ask me, the thing that has really killed Vosh is that for a little while they were trying to kind of mainstream him. They were getting him to interview sort of lower level, or he was being brought in as a lower level, and he would have conversations with like Kyle Kulinski or Crystal Ball on the Hill, you know, like, so he was kind of being brought in to talk to these sorts of people. But if you ask me, the reality is that Vosh is a creepy weirdo. And when he is actually put into a conversation where he needs to have a serious conversation with people who are serious, he comes across as a creepy weirdo. Because the truth is that Vosh is a creepy weirdo, right? Like, there's all kinds of stuff online about this guy where he's saying all kinds of creepy shit to people. And talking about pedophilia and talking about bestiality and talking about all this kind of creepy shit. And basically just being a creepy weirdo. And it comes across. And one of the things that kills me about somebody like Vosh is how incapable he is of having a serious conversation. Like, if you want to watch somebody kind of just bicker, like, if that's what you're into, like, if you just want, like, this is what the debate bros have always been, which is why I can't stand it, because they're just bickering. They're not making points and listening to each other and actually hearing what's being said and then evolving their position based on new information, or even seeding the idea that there might be new information given to them. If something is said that is completely destroys their position, they just hand wave it away, say, oh, excuses, and then just move on to something else. Right? So it's just like the lamest possible form of discourse. And at the end of the day, like, Vosh is an imperialist. Like, this to me is the thing that really discredits him as an intellectual and as a thinker and as somebody who shouldn't be tolerated, is that he's pro empire. Like, he thinks that the wars abroad and that what America does across the world is great and that it should be done, which completely discredits him utterly. That he's not much different than a neocon then. He's just a neocon who thinks that healthcare is good, right? So he has these ideas where, like, yeah, we should improve the quality of life for the populace so that we can go to war and kill people. Speaking of, good opportunity, like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles, do the things. Have all the stuff. If you've got $1 jangling around in that pocket, please consider donating it. Please consider being part of my Patreon. It's in the discourse. Thank you so much. And I think the Canadian situation to what's going on in America is not that much different. That we are going to have to see it, and I think it is going to be Pierre Poilievre. Like, the polls are showing that it's the case. I think Pierre Poilievre is going to push it forward, and he's going to make it happen. He's going to become the Prime Minister of Canada, and I think he's going to do it simply through rhetoric. That he understands, like, you know what, man? I've got the greatest thing ever here. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Here's the Conservative Party putting out a video, right? And I've actually got this set up so I can actually play it and have sound. Look at this. We're going to do a start and stop. This is the Conservative Party.
Canada is a great country, but it can be even better.
But it can be even better. So already right off the top, right? Canada's a great country, right? We're great. But we think it could be better.
Canada is a great country, but it can be even better. The Conservative Party of Canada is working tirelessly to create a Canada that is safe, prosperous, and free.
And free. Because we've got to protect your freedoms. Free.
Conservative government will truly be able to make that vision a reality. A conservative government will create jobs and grow the economy by reducing taxes and
cutting red tape. So it's more of the like neoliberal bullshit, right? It's more of the just like, we're going to reduce your taxes and get rid of all this red tape. That's what's in the way. So it's literally empower corporations and let chaos reign. Right? Let chaos reign.
And cutting red tape. We'll keep Canadians safe by cracking down on smuggling, organized crime, and gangs.
This one I love so much. Like, we literally have, like, the CIA and CSIS bringing in drugs, creating cartels. Like, the reason why this exists is because of our our intelligence community. Right, and so then what are we doing? We're gonna raise funding for cops.
We'll give law enforcement the tools they need to fight crime and put an end to the revolving door justice system.
So what we're gonna do is we're not gonna defund all of these programs that are bringing in the drugs and creating the cartels. Right, we're not gonna get away from that. No, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get more cops, and those cops, are they gonna fight against the CIA and CSIS doing this? No. They're going to go after the people who are doing the drugs. It's a declaration of the war on drugs again, right? Basically.
Conservatives believe in a healthcare system that puts patients first.
Rich patients. It's always good to add the word rich in front of basically everything they say. That puts rich patients first. That if you can afford to pay for the fees after we privatize the system, you'll get the best care possible.
The party will solve the doctor shortage by creating a system that allows those with international healthcare credentials to come to Canada and get their Canadian licenses faster.
So what we're going to do for Canadians is we're going to make a system where if we find a country that has a lot of doctors, we'll blow that country up and then let those doctors come to the country that blew them up. So I think their plan is actually to create a system where doctors can come and keep their accreditation, which is actually a good idea, but then they're going to like blow Cuba up, right? They're going to support like destroying Cuba. Why? Because Cuba has more doctors than we do. So we'll get an influx of Cuban doctors into Canada because we blew their island nation up.
We will help those struggling with addictions to receive treatment instead of more drugs so that they can take back control of their lives. And
this is just sort of said, right? Yeah, how does a two-tier system help the average Canadian?
Drug companies pay for the harm they've caused by creating this drug crisis in the first place. Conservatives believe
this kind of statement, it's like I ostensibly agree with this idea, but well, and this messaging is way more effective than the LPC messaging because it is at least acknowledging that there are problems, right? Like, what have I continuously said about this? Is that people will vote for someone so long as you stand in front of them and say, here is a genuine problem that is actually serious. And meanwhile, the Liberal Party, which has done basically fuck all to resolve any of these problems except minor piecemeal reformism, their whole pitch has to be explaining how, oh yeah, we actually do a good job even though we fucking suck, right? But messages like this will make drug companies pay for the harm they've caused by creating this drug crisis in the first place. That sounds good. They're not going to do that. Like, this is another part about it. It's like The conservatives are in a position now where they can just lie. Like, they just can lie, like they always have, and they always do. Like, yeah, right, we'll see about that. I'm sure they'll, like, raise taxes on these pharmaceutical companies by 1% and then give them a bailout worth 10% of what they took.
Crisis in the first place. Conservatives believe that Canada should be a place where hard work leads to success. That's why we're going
Keep working for the system that's betraying you. Keep working for your enslavement.
to stop wasting billions of dollars on high-priced consultants.
We're going to stop asking people's opinions.
And keep more dollars in your pockets.
You keep more money, and our owners also keep more of their money. See, it's balanced, right? You keep more of your money, they keep more of their money, and everybody keeps their money, and that's how you build an economy.
Conservatives will build affordable housing by ridding the process of delays, selling off surplus federal buildings, and promoting valuable education pathways in the trade.
I love this. I love this. Selling off
federal buildings,
CBC Radio Canada. Like, they're being pretty explicit that they want to destroy the CBC, right? Like, they're being pretty explicit about this, that the only information that should come out of Canada is through corporate ownership. They don't want to have a state-funded media apparatus of any sort. Everything needs to be owned by corporations. And we all know who's going to buy the CBC. It's going to be corporations. It's going to be like Galen Weston is going to buy it. How about the decriminalization of drugs and taking the money we're using on police and investing into harm reduction for their addiction? What is this, a commie? The commie talk? Don't you know that communism leads to hundreds of millions of people? Hundreds of millions of people across the globe are murdered by communism every day. That nobody has ever killed more people than communism, don't you know? And this commie talk, I won't tolerate it.
And promoting valuable education pathways in the trades.
Like this idea that we're all just going to be turned into vocational workers. Like this is the pathway forward. That goodbye any of the tech sector stuff. Goodbye any research and development. Right? We're literally just going to say to the country, okay, everybody pick up a hammer and start swinging that hammer. But as always, everybody's going to do that all at once. So what it means is that the wage of a construction worker is going to plummet. Right? Like, that's how it's going to work. Yeah, that there's not suddenly going to be like thousands of people who are electricians making good money. There's going to be way more electricians than we need earning less money. Because the trouble that we're having is that we're bottlenecked in that only a small group of people have the wealth to even pay for a trades person of any sort, right? It's a dwindling minority of people who are going to have the capital or the excess capital to even pay for these people in the first place, because we're basically strip mining the society. So sure, you'll go into the trades, become an electrician, right? But you're not going to be paid as well as the previous electrician was, and your wage will constantly be in a state of decline. Because why? There's 100 times more of you. Like,
conservatives will scrap the carbon tax.
Just straight up, like, who gives a shit about the climate at all? I know the carbon tax didn't really work. Honestly, it was not really intended to work. But, like, the conservatives are essentially just like, yeah, climate change, we're not even going to bother saying it.
Bringing down the cost of fuel, food, and home heating. And, of course, conservatives will defend your freedom. Conservatives will protect your democratic right to vote in free elections by creating a foreign agent registry and getting serious about China's electoral interference.
Foreign agent registry. So we're going to make Chinese people register to vote, is basically what they're saying here. How is this anything more than just like, we're going to create an immigrant registry? This is like one step off of being like, oh, you're from China, you don't get to vote anymore, right? Like, it's got that kind of a smack about it. And of course, you got to make sure that you get your healthy dose of McCarthyism into your ads, right? We should be terrified about China. Yeah, what Chinese election interference exactly? No, but since when have conservatives been interested in telling the truth?
We'll protect your internet freedom by scrapping Trudeau's online censorship, Bill C-11.
We'll scrap your Trudeau's online censorship, Bill C-11. Like, Bill C-11 is literally the Broadcasting Act just spread into the internet. That's it. Like, that's it. It's not like a censorship bill. That's what's so crazy about the conservative talking point on this. And it's crazy that there's nobody anywhere that's actually pointing out that, like, what Bill C-11 does, and, like, the worst thing it'll ever do is you'll go to YouTube and there'll be a line in Canadian YouTube that says Canadian content. And then there'll be videos there on that line that is for Canadian content. That's it. That's what the bill is designed to do. That's what the bill does. And this is considered online censorship. But when you pause and actually think about it, something like that would ostensibly benefit someone like me, right? Like, I'm a Canadian producing Canadian content, talking about Canada, and Bill C-11 means that my content might end up on that line more often than not, right? So why am I being told that this is online censorship when it's essentially taking the Broadcasting Act, which already exists and has existed in Canada for decades, and saying this should apply to other streaming services? Right? Yeah, Canadian conservatives are something else. Yeah, and so they're just, like, basically all they're doing is they're preying on the ignorance of their base. And basically just holding, Pierre Poilievre literally stood in the House with a copy of the book 1984 and talked about this issue. Like, straight up. I read 1984 in high school, and it's this Trudeau, this online censorship is gonna be the thing. Yeah, dumb as poop. Dumb as poop.
Canada is a great country, but it can be even better. Only conservative.
Isn't that like the lightest way of saying make Canada great again? Isn't that like the lightest possible touch to just dog whistle towards this, like, it's not make Canada great again.
Online censorship, Bill C-11.
Very literal.
Canada is a great country.
Canada is a great country. We don't need to be great again. We are a great country.
But it can be even better.
But it could be better. So we're gonna make Canada great again. We're gonna make Canada greater again. Make Canada greater again. It's such a, like, soft touch.
Only conservatives will help secure a brighter future.
Only conservatives will help secure a brighter future for the Aryan race. Like, they're so full of shit. That's the part about these conservatives. And they're yeah, somebody pointed out, I think it was Vince, pointed out, yeah, did you see the newest Nanos poll? Cons are polling at a 4-year majority. I fully expect a CPC majority or minority next election. Only a neoliberal, liberals or NDP to blame. We'll see how it goes. I say it pretty regularly when it comes to Canadian elections, is that Canadians are fickle and we change our minds in election seasons. I've seen too many Canadian elections to really say that, like, yeah, the CPC is definitely going to be a majority and all that kind of stuff. Like, Canadians are very, 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 very fickle. And when they're on the phone, dude, they're literally just like, yeah, fuck Trudeau. This fucking Trudeau fucking guy. Yeah, I'll vote conservative. You bet your ass I'll vote conservative. I'll vote the hell out of, what's his name? Pierre Pavler? That Pavler guy, he seems like a slick Willie. I'm gonna do, oh, fuck you, Trudeau. Click. And then, like, election season comes, and they actually, like, think about it for 2 seconds. And maybe they take a better look at what's going on and they sort of think to themselves like, these conservatives are full of shit. Although this time, straight up, like, the conservatives are playing the game right this time around. That they're not trying to be kind of center-ish conservatives, you know? Like that was what did in Aaron O'Toole. That Aaron O'Toole was sort of trying to be like a little bit more of a moderate conservative. He was talking about climate change. He was talking about the things that needed to actually be done, right? And of course he's a conservative, so it's a bit clownish, but you know, he's trying to acknowledge reality of what's going on. And Pierre Poilievre is just like, no, that's not how you win an election. What did I say right at the beginning? What did I say when Aaron O'Toole was running? That if you go back to my live streams where I was talking about Aaron O'Toole and why he failed, what did I say then? He failed because he was not an effective liar. That Canadians routinely, over and over again, vote for the most effective liar, the most effective grifter. And Pierre Poilievre is a very effective grifter. That he is running an extremely effective grift, and he is doing so based on the classic politics of conservatives, which is deny the existence of reality completely, bitch about the minor inconveniences that exist, and fearmonger about shit that's not real, right? Bill C-11's gonna take away your freedoms. Total nonsense. The Chinese are interfering in your government. Complete and total utter dreck. Total nonsense. We're gonna reform the healthcare system to make sure every Canadian has the best healthcare possible if they can pay for it. Like, classic conservatism. And it's working. Like, it's working. And I don't think we're going to see a very effective rebuttal from the Trudeau Liberals, because I don't think the Trudeau Liberals are very effective. Like, they're not really interested in governing. Not really. Like, they're interested in their own kind of floofy-haired power structure and all that. That, like, if the Liberals... I'll say this until the day I die. I think that if the Trudeau Liberals had have taken the advantage of COVID and actually implemented permanent support systems and really doubled down on those support systems, I think that they would be an extremely popular government. Like, the CERB was an extremely easy thing to just keep in place. To just say, like, yeah, here's that basic income that we've all been talking about. We're just going to do it. Like, we're just going to do it. Like, here we are. We're seeing that there's a crisis that's rolling in. While that crisis is rolling in, the solution that we reached for as a way to protect the populace from this crisis what is a basic income. So we're going to implement that basic income. You're all going to take advantage of it. And the basic and we could just keep it in place. But instead, they systematically dismantled it, which I always viewed as complete cowardice. Like, and not only that, they also started turning around and making people pay for it, right? Which I actually have said, like, I feel like the Canadian people actually have a pretty significant class action lawsuit against the Liberal government. That the CERB was rolled in with an understanding that this was a support system. This wasn't a loan. That was always the understanding of the CERB. And then to turn around and say to people, "Oh no, you've got to pay that back. You weren't actually able or eligible for that thing, even though we gave you the money and said you were." Like, I think the Canadians have a pretty significant class action lawsuit against the Liberal government on this. And that the Liberal government should have just kept it in place and should have just said, like, yeah, we're doing this. But, you know, they're an unserious government. They're not actually interested in helping the people. They only implemented that policy because they were scared and they didn't know what else to do. And so it is what it is. Like, I think we're going to end up with a conservative government, and the NDP will probably gain a little bit more steam gain a little bit more support. I think the dental care thing is going to kick in, and people are actually going to remember it and are actually going to think of the NDP to a certain degree. But the truth is that the majority of Canadians are going to look at Singh and be like, what's with the turban? It's never going to get better. Like, Canadians are not suddenly going to be like, sure, he's got a turban, but he's got my vote. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, we are way too white supremacist for that. Yeah, Vosh is so cringe. Dude says Mao/Marx would have voted for Biden to stop Trump. Total clownery. Yeah, complete clownery. Imagine believing that Mao would vote for Biden. Like, bro. The U.S. aided Saddam Hussein in the 1980s to attack Iran and then prevented Iran from getting masks to protect their population from the chemical gas. Yet North Korea sent the masks to protect them. Absolutely. Yeah, 338 says only a 7% chance of a con majority. I think that it's just scary that it's in that territory at all. That, like, but it's pretty early, and it's and Canadians are very fickle, and a lot can happen. Like, the Liberals could announce a pretty major policy, like right at election, like the ruling class and the ruling party will do that kind of thing, where an election season will come and they'll buy votes. Right, for sure they will. June 3rd, there's going to be a massive protest, apparently. Just checked our Ontario. Yeah, we'll see. I don't have that much faith in Canadians when it comes to this kind of thing. I've been going to some protests. One of the things that is encouraging, I don't want to be a complete negative Nancy about this, negative Nancy, but the protests that I've been going to are soft. That the benefit, like the pro of it, is that it's professionals are beginning to come out and protest. Doctors, nurses, right? Professionals, people who, if you're a hard right conservative get a job guy, you can't say shit. These are doctors and nurses. If you're saying get a better job to those people, you're a fucking Nazi, or just so stupid that you can't find your shoes. Like, there's no reason to pay any attention to you whatsoever. But the problem is that the doctors and the nurses and the teachers and all of these different groups are basically coming out with almost no teeth. Like, they're coming out and they're saying, Doug Ford can do better, and we're beseeching you, Doug Ford, to do better. And I'm like, where's the threat of your strike? Where's your strike? Are you threatening a strike? Are you even saying that you're interested in doing a strike? Are you threatening anything? No? Then he's going to ignore this. And I feel like what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the professional class learn the lessons, and they're going to have to learn the lessons that people like the union drive for Amazon and the union drive for Starbucks, and like that, these sort of lower level workers have already learned that unless you're actually threatening something significant and serious, like a strike, then the ruling class doesn't give a fuck what you say, doesn't give a fuck what you think. And so that's kind of where we're at in terms of protests and in terms of disruption in Ontario, is that it's good that the professional class is beginning to come out and protest in bigger and more significant ways. That's a positive. That's a move in the direction. But it's still way, way, way behind. Like, it's still way, way, way behind. Like, these people need to get way more militant. And I think what's going to happen for a lot of them, because a lot of them are saying, like, I went to this protest, and a lot of these people were saying, a lot of doctors and nurses were like, these policies will kill people. We will watch people die. And so in that way, it's like, okay, this is a catharsis for you then, to come out and say, like, okay, I did something. You know, I'm going to watch people die needlessly in my profession, and knowing that it's happening because of Doug Ford, but it didn't happen silently. And so I think these doctors and these nurses and these people are going to have to watch people die that they know could have been saved, that they know didn't need to die, and they need to kind of come to a realization that Doug Ford doesn't give a shit about those people, that he's completely fine with those people dying if it means, you know, an extra penny for him. and maybe then they'll start to get more serious, right? Maybe once they actually see the specter of death come through their halls, right, they'll actually start to say, oh shit, we need to strike. Like, we need to do something more serious about this. Yeah, the messaging is more effective than the LPC messaging, for sure. Fiddleford's catalog. I don't think I've ever seen you here before, bud. I'm going to get to your comment. Hope you're here to be beautiful, bud. Yeah, joke's on them. Chinese people barely vote. John, why are Canadian conservatives such wussies? This ad needs a swirly. Yeah, Pierre Poilievre looks that way, doesn't it? I literally want to go to Canada and give your conservatives a wedgie. They're hall monitor nerds. Yeah, like, but that's the truth. Like they can't go hard, right? They can't go hard because so many of them actually think that they're good people. Like that's the big thing. It's like you really do have tons and tons and tons of these conservatives, like clutching Bibles, talking about Jesus, and genuinely believing that what they espouse is has anything to do with Christianity or Christian values whatsoever. And so they, and many of them, especially the more moderate wings of the Conservative Party, have come to understand and have come to see that a lot of the rhetoric surrounding conservatism and conservative values is essentially Nazi adjacent. Like, make America great again is like a Ku Klux Klan slogan. Like, and Canadian conservatives understand at least that. They understand that, like, you can say a lot of fucked up shit if you say it like this. If you say, yeah, we should definitely make sure that, why should I pay for someone else's education? You know, like, what, I work hard and my God-given money, and my money should be my own to spend how I see fit. And if somebody wants to educate their kid, they should have to pay for it, right? And so you can say that all you want, and as long as you talk in that kind of tone. And there's no sort of sense of like, oh, you just want to live in a society full of stupid people. Like, and if you say that kind of thing, they go, well, we don't need to resort to insults, because they can't acknowledge the truth of the statement, that it's just stupid. Like, these guys think they're smart when they're extraordinarily stupid. They think that they're open-minded and they have freedom when they've got a closed society, and they basically pay fealty to a small group of billionaires. And so it's really coming out. So they're walking this line between not wanting to be Nazi adjacent, even though they are, in their rhetoric at least, and wanting to pretend as though they're intellectual and that they've got something intelligent or smart to say. And so it's coming across like this. It's happening this way, where they've got to say this, yeah, we're going to abandon Canada and make sure the poor die. And they got to say it like nerds, because everybody loves a nerd all of a sudden. Nerds come across as harmless, I think. Danarchist Simpson stated it accurately. Conservatives, we want what's worse for everyone. We're just plain evil. Liberals, we hate life and ourselves. We can't govern. Yeah, at least conservatives are upfront about what they want, which is money for me, go get fucked. Like, that's pretty basic conservatism. Like, I think that I should get all the wealth. If the government gives me big handouts, then it makes all the sense in the world, because I'm super important and I matter. And if the government gives you handouts, it's because you're a lazy layabout, right? That is essentially the conservative ethos. Like, if something good happens for me, it's because I'm amazing. If something good happens for you, it's because you're lazy. And if you don't buy into that idea, then you're probably not a conservative. You're at least a liberal. Fiddleford's catalog says, Pooh's Who. Okay. Co-opting is a big annoyance in spreading of information and disarming the structures built to give collective bargaining its power. Have a debate between someone who lives in NWO and SEO about taxes and appropriation, though, in relation to taxes provincially. I don't think I'm really understanding your commentary, Fiddleford. Sorry, bud. Adam, most polls I've seen has Pierre always behind Trudeau, and either barely ahead or behind for the party. But in almost every scenario, due to first past the post, the Liberals would win another minority. Yeah, I mean, it's... the margins on these things are so small, which always makes it very tenuous. And again, I just say, like, Canadians are extremely fickle. Like, I've seen Canadians completely flip. In Toronto especially, I've seen elections where we were all polling for one candidate and then it flipped. And we all just decided, nah, we're going to go with someone else. And support just bottoms out for somebody. Like, it does happen. And, like, I feel like Canadians are getting pretty tired of Trudeau. You know? Like, the people who are voting for Trudeau are not voting for Trudeau because they're like, rah, Trudeau. Yeah, Trudeau's going to show us the way. It's that they genuinely think he's the best of the bad options. You know, they're looking at him and just being like, well, he's better than these conservatives, I guess. Like, that's the attitude. Whereas the people who are voting conservative are like, fuck Trudeau. We're going to get this guy out of office. We're going to take back Canada. And we're going to I'm going to get my taxes cut. These Trudeau taxes are killing us and I'm going to get rid of them. So, like, who's got the energy? Right? Who's got the energy? Like, where's Trudeau's, like... Trudeau doesn't have people putting stickers on the back of cars and shit. Like, Trudeau doesn't have, like, a big, like, swooning group of people who are willing to plaster their cars full of stickers. Right? Didn't the making of Toronto a megacity help conservatives in the 90s? So, there's the Doug Ford conservatives and the Mike Harris conservatives. Mike Harris, a widely unpopular premier, and he said that, oh, we're going to save a bunch of money by making Toronto, instead of having like Brampton and Vaughan and Etobicoke and all these like neighborhoods that were their own cities, that had their own mayors and had their own kind of thing, he said, no, we're going to conglomerate that all together, and this will be all part of the greater Toronto area. And that'll make it easier and we'll save a bunch of money. And of course, that all ended up being a bunch of bullshit. That what it was always about was was making it so that conservatives can ram through legislation easier. That now with the Ford government, legislation can pass in the council chambers of Toronto with 1/3 the vote. Like that's literally the legislation that's being passed from the Ford administration. So it's always about destroying democracy. It's always about making sure people have less power. It's always about making sure that that conservatives and liberals are able to ram through whatever legislation they want. It's always to make sure that the populace can never actually have a voice. It's always to make sure that the populace is as disconnected from the power structure as possible. Yeah, Harris was an absolute grifter. The guy, like, privatized long-term care homes and then sits on the board of directors for long-term care homes. Like, it's obviously a grift. He essentially bought himself some long-term care homes as the premier. Like, that's basically what he did. It's like the definition of corruption. And incidentally, Doug Ford is doing the same thing. Like, Doug Ford learned a lot from the Harris administration on how to make a lot of money for yourself, right? And he's doing the same kind of damage that Harris did to Ontario, except he's just going a little deeper, right? He's just cutting a little deeper because he has to cut a little bit deeper because the Harris administration cut deep. And then the Liberals afterwards, McGuinty and Wynne, didn't really do anything to pull it back because they were benefiting from it, and they always did. Like Trudeau, nobody likes neocon Biden, but Trump was an international embarrassment. Plus, the Nazi-friendly aspect was there. I think Pierre has the same issue. Harris, I didn't say unpopular. Oh, if I said unpopular, that's not what I mean. I said worst. Like, that's what I mean. Like, he was a terrible... like, Doug Ford has a 2x majority. Doesn't mean that he's a good premier. Like, he's terrible. That the people who are voting for these guys are completely stupid. Like, stupid is the word. Like, Doug Ford came in, and the very first thing he did was destroy Ontario. That he eliminated 700 green initiatives, right? Basically took the future economy of Ontario, the trajectory that Ontario needs to go on in order to stay competitive, in order to stay abreast of what's going on in the world, and just uncritically, no discussion, no analysis, not even an explanation, really, just destroyed them. Systematically was just like, nope, all of these 700 programs are gone. That makes the Ford administration the stupidest administration the country has ever seen. That would be not too much different than if we were trying to get the Trans-Canada Highway built or the Trans-Canada Railway built, and the premier came in and just scrapped that project. That's the level of that stupidity. That there were major initiatives that the Wynne government and the McGuinty government were putting in to move forward and to make the new economy of Ontario one that would be rooted in the new technologies and the new economy that needs to come about. Like, this is the part about what's going on that's so fucking stupid. It's not like the oil is going to stay forever, right? It's not like oil is a renewable resource. It's not like we're going to have this shit forever. That at some point, we do have to, by definition, invest in other technologies and other ways of generating power and electricity for ourselves if we want to have these things, right? Like, we must do it. The sooner the better. That we should be thinking of fossil fuels and coal and natural gas as stepping stones at this point. That the people who are saying, like, we'll just keep burning oil and coal and all this kind of stuff are dinosaurs, are dunders, who are holding us back in ways that cannot be overstated. And we're all just wallowing in it. And previous governments, like the McGuinty-Wynne government, actually attempted to move the province forward in that way with these initiatives. It's not strictly for environmental reasons. It's not strictly to reduce emissions. It's not strictly to do that kind of stuff, which incidentally the McGuinty and Wynne government were successful at doing. It's not exclusively for doing that. It's also to build a new economy that we desperately need. And Ford destroyed it. He has a 2x majority. So what does that tell you about the intelligence of Ontarians? What does that tell you about the intelligence of the people who are voting for the Ford administration? And moreover, what does that tell you about the courage and the capacity to organize among the left in Ontario? So we are literally, like, quite straightforwardly in Ontario, it's going to take us decades to recover. Like, we are going to fall dramatically behind, like, because not only are we not actually moving forward with any initiatives whatsoever, we're actively destroying the initiatives that we were trying to implement in the first place. And the primary competitor, if you want to think about it that way, that we have on the stage is China. And China doesn't think that way, and it doesn't do that, right? That when China comes in and new people come into power, they build off of what the previous administration had done. They don't just scrap everything. Yeah, the great amalgamation of the GTA in the 90s was a grift of a lifetime. Absolutely. Like, abso-fucking-lutely, dude. It was absolutely a grift that, like, you just need to stop for 2 seconds and be like, wait, how is this actually going to be cheaper? Like, you simply can't have one person governing 100,000 people. It just doesn't work that way. And so what you just end up with is you end up with 100,000 people voting for one person, and then that one person just has an enormous administrative just an enormous administrative body. So it ends up costing at least the same. But we've done the studies and we know that it costs more, right? It costs more to do it this way because it's way more difficult. And at the end of the day, what you end up with is you end up with one representative who ends up talking to the rich people in the room, right? Which is why it was always done in the first place. It was always done because the rich always knew that they would have a seat at the table. They always knew that they would be able to get the ear of whoever their representative was. And they don't care what the poor think. And they don't want the poor to have the opportunity to have the same thing, right? It is that straightforward. That there's no other reason to have done it, right? What was so wrong with the other way we were organizing it? Well, what was wrong with it is that it gave people a bigger voice. That if you are governing 1,000 people, right, it's easier to hear what they have to say. It's easier to give each one of them a moment of your time. It's easier to get a sense of what's happening in your community. And it's easier for everybody to know who you are. And it's easier to find out what you're doing and where you're going and to be part of what's happening politically in your community. But if it's 100,000 people, well, you probably don't even know where the guy lives. Like, you probably don't even know where does he even work? Where's his office even? And he's never there because at the end of the day, he's not talking to regular everyday people. He's talking to the rich people in the room. And that's who he's given his time to. Because instead of having 1,000 people or even 10,000 people, he has 100,000. So it's just a total fucking disaster from start to finish. And you end up calling a big reason why Doug Ford gets into office, like straight up, a big reason why Doug Ford gets into office is because he gets this reputation that if you call him, you talk to him. That's a big part of the reputation that the Fords built for themselves. You call him and you get him. Well, what does that imply? It implies that everybody else is using assistance. And why are they using assistance? Because they have so many people to govern over. And what it tells me is that the Fords really, at the end of the day, don't really have that many people calling their office. Probably because rich people, like the rich people they deal with, don't just call them, right? They talk to them at the church, or they talk to him at the annual meeting, where they buy a plate from him or something, right? That's when they talk to him. They don't need to call his office, right? If you serve a dinner where it's $1,000 a plate, right, that's where the conversation actually happens. You don't waste your time talking to him on the phone. That's why he's you get to talk to Dougie if you pick up the phone. Yeah, because nobody's calling him. I mean, they certainly are now. I know I was at a protest and everybody called the Doug Ford's office. I love this meme just because I loved it. From Nick Adams, alpha male. It starts with Fortnite and boneless wings. It ends with gender pronouns and communism. So true, King. Beware of the pipeline. Regular guy, Fortnite, boneless wings, gender pronouns, communism. Oh no. The horror. The absolute horror. This is my favorite part about this conversation. Is that these guys are actually genuinely afraid of men wearing women's clothing. That's what it's come down to. That's the absurdity of the right. That's the absurdity of the conversation. That these guys are actually holding up men who are wearing women's clothing and saying, this is the end of civilization. Everything is terrible and horrible. We're declining in such a major way because there are men in the society wearing women's clothing. And they're saying all of this in front of a tent city. Like, they're saying all of this in front of a society that's like completely in utter economic disarray and collapse. Yeah, dresses are scary. Meanwhile, I actually have that article. Meanwhile, Antarctic sea ice receding at an unprecedented rate. Like, communism creates waifus. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Trans rights are human rights. Absolutely. Look, it is so fucking embarrassing that the issue of trans people is that there is any legislation being done on it. That initially, when it was all just Joe Rogan talking about it, and when it was all just Dave Chappelle talking about it, it was something of a curiosity, I feel. That people were just looking at it as this sort of like, what the fuck is this? And were taken by the curiosity of it. But now it has become an obvious witch hunt on the right. They've obviously lost their mind about it. They took all the shit that Chappelle and Rogan said and they weaponized all of it, right? That trans women in sports was a big Rogan thing. Dave Chappelle said a bunch of shit that they immediately adopted into their Nazi rhetoric in order to push legislation. Then you've got literal Nazis like Matt Walsh producing content like What is a Woman? When in reality, Matt Walsh should not be talking about women at all because he's such an obvious misogynist and a bigot that he shouldn't say the word woman. And it's weird that he's saying what is a woman instead of what is a man, right? Why are you not asking what is a man? Maybe talk about that position, because then you could have a little bit of credibility. Right? Because you don't even know what a woman is. I bet you can't even find the clitoris. Like, shut the fuck up, Matt Walsh. But at the end of the day, like, they're putting in all of this effort, all of this power, all of this organizational force in order to demonize trans people and kick in their doors and cause them a bunch of problems, when it's such a small group of people in the society. And then they turn around and pretend like this is at all a problem at all. Like, this is how pathetic the right is. This is pathetic. You are afraid of a man wearing women's clothing. You are afraid of somebody who was born male saying now that they are female and going through like gender affirming care, and which the American Medical Association says that they should. And it's such a small minority of people in the society that you're blowing up into like national concern. It's pathetic. It shows you that these people have nothing better to do with their time. Like, they're not fighting against poverty. They're not fighting against hunger. They're not fighting against the war on drugs. They're not fighting against legitimate problems that are serious and real. No, men wearing women's clothing. This needs to stop. We need to create a dress code. By the way, I believe in freedom, but a dress code. Men need to dress like men, and women need to dress like women. And if a man dresses like a woman, then they have to go to jail. And if a woman dresses like a man, then they have to go to jail. Freedom. I believe in freedom. Like, and really at the end of the day, what's so fucking hilarious about the right on this is who gives a shit about your opinion? Like, who gives a shit at all about your opinion on the subject even a little bit? Like, you're not involved. Like, they're literally forcing themselves on these people. Like, what we're witnessing is like a form of domination. It's a form of rape. It's a form of removing people's consent. Because instead, it's very similar to the abortion issue. instead of the conversation being between the people who are actually involved in it, that these guys feel like they need to get involved. It's creepy. It's creepy. It's weird. The people who are doing it, even if they're well meant, are at best delusional, and yet we're finding out that these people are the majority. Like, the legislation's passing. People are acting this way. People are acting like it matters. Autism exists on a spectrum, and no one would disagree with it. Now taking gender says it's on a spectrum, and conservatives lose their fucking mind. Yeah, because they can't understand the nuance. They don't understand the difference between, like, the physical genitalia and the construct of gender. Like, they literally can't separate those two because they're too stupid. Like, they're too stupid to understand it. And they're too misogynist, and they're too bigoted to even attempt to make that distinction. Texas apparently passed a law that is vague enough to prosecute anyone looking even a little bit queer. Are you a man with long hair and nail polish? You could face jail time. Yeah, I could face jail time, right? Like, so much for your free country. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, this is what's becoming embarrassing about these, like, libertarian right-wing types. It's like, what are you talking about freedom? Like, what are you fucking talking about? If you put nail polish in, they can round you up. If you're in a major urban center, the police can just pick you up for whatever reason they want. They can just make up anything. Like, I strongly suggest that people read Matt Taibbi's The Great Divide, because he goes right through this. Like, stop and frisk, all of these policies are basically just fascism, where cops can just stop you and throw you into the back of vehicles whenever they want, take you to state houses, charge you with whatever crime they want, force you to go see a judge about it, right? Like, it's this Kafka-esque system. Loaf, good to see you, bud. Like, we're in this, like, Kafka-esque system where police are given quotas that they have to meet, and so they aggressively pursue these quotas, just grabbing people off the street, throwing them into the back of vehicles, right? No charge. They haven't done anything wrong. Like, people are literally just standing on street corners, and they end up in the back of a police cruiser. They get charged with something like resisting arrest, because of course you're resisting the arrest. Why are you being arrested? And they drive you to the state house. You spend a night in jail, right? Then they send you home, and you gotta find your way to a state house with the date that they told you to be there. So you gotta take time off work. You gotta deal with this bullshit. Then you go and stand in front of a judge, and the judge is seeing so many of these types of cases that they've lost the capacity for empathy. They don't care what your situation is, and more likely than not, they'll just make you pay they'll say to you, pay a $50 fine and you can go right now. And if you dig your heels in and you say no, well, then you've got a whole trial, and they got to set a trial date, and you got a whole thing on your hands. And so most people just pay the $50 and leave, right? So this whole process is just basically the equivalent of picking up a kid on the schoolyard and just jangling him until change comes out of his pockets. And this is freedom. This is what's called freedom in America. Like, no thanks. Yeah, Loaf says, hi, I'm Matt Walsh. I'm going to spend the next 3 years ranting about the sexuality of young girls. No, I don't have any educational professional background, and no, I don't have any kids of my own. Yeah, Matt Walsh is a creep. Like, a true creep. And I lost a massive amount of respect for Joe Rogan when he platformed Matt Walsh. Like, I had been kind of on the decline with Rogan for a little while, but when he platformed Matt Walsh and the way he talked to Matt Walsh, I was like, oh, you're like you're a Nazi buddy. Like, you're a buddy with Nazis. Like, you think Nazis are cool. Like, it's open now, because Matt Walsh calls himself a theocratic fascist. Like, it's not a secret. You gotta purposefully miss it. You've got to actively shut off a part of your brain in order to miss it, right? Yeah. Matt Taibbi is a turf. I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen anything that shows me that he's like a complete, like, that he's on that side of the fence. He would not be one to speak out against trans or drag bans. I mean, it's... Yeah. I think a drag ban just passed in Florida. Rocky Horror Live Musical is banned. Yeah, really think about that. Like, really think about that. Think things that have existed in America for decades. Right? The Rocky Horror Picture Show is being banned. Like, really, really fucking think about what that means. It's a major cultural shift towards fascism. Like, a major cultural shift towards fascism. And I think there's a reason why people are really working hard to try to make sure that Biden doesn't run again. Because they see all this happening. Like, it's all happening in front of your face. And it's all happening while you have a Democratic president. Like, and it's not going to get better. Like, it's if anything, this moment, this attack against the trans community is going to spread and empower these people. That they are going to begin fighting against the gay agenda. They are going to begin pushing against this. They are going to begin a process of dehumanizing gay and queer people again. That they are going to go through this process. And it's going to be like creepy pedo weirdos like Matt Walsh who are at the forefront of it. Like, it's very shocking to me that this guy is even allowed in the room, even in conservative circles, right? Even in conservative circles. Like, the guy, like, if somebody wore like an SS uniform, like it finally took someone like Kanye. Kanye was finally the one who showed where the line actually was for these guys. And it turns out that the line is literally, I love Hitler. That's the line for these guys. That anything before that is completely fine. Like, that's America. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit the bells, hit the whistles, hit the things, do the stuff. Please consider donating. If you've got $1 jangling around in that pocket, think about sending it my way. You could become a Patreon. It's in the description. Every dollar helps. Makes me feel good about myself. My hope with this stream is to turn this into a full-time thing and is to begin causing the political system problems face to face. Like going to council meetings, going to these places. Because these guys need to have their ears screamed at. Very straightforward. Adam, what's so funny about that particular quote is, I mean, like, don't you feel like that's actually a complete diss? Like, that Taibbi's not saying that it's a serious thing that people should take seriously, right? He's saying that What is a Woman is a good example of political comedy. That it's good to see you at the tablet, by the way. Good to see you, Santora. Like, that's what I took away from it when I heard Taibbi say that. Like, Taibbi's trying to sort of play nice with the Fox News crowd so that he'll actually get a voice. Like, he keeps commenting, and it's very true. He's written several books recently, and he can't get a conversation with anybody. Like, it's very clear that Taibbi has been blacklisted. Like, very, very clear. And so he ends up on Fox News because they're the only guys the only people who are actually having him on. And he says of Matt Walsh's transphobic documentary, he doesn't say, like Joe Rogan says, that this is a, oh wow, what a prescient and interesting conversation documentary. No, he calls it a political comedy. So it's something to be laughed at. Right? I think that's a pretty big diss, frankly. Like, I don't think that you should be taking What is a Woman seriously. So that basically puts that documentary, What is a Woman, in the same category as like what's her name, Imelda Kunk is doing, where she's walking around saying the dumbest possible shit to educated people about the subject. My favorite is like, so what is the Soviet Onion? I think you might mean the Soviet Union. No, I quite clearly mean the Soviet Onion. Yeah. And he can't get a spot on CNN. He can't get an interview on CNN. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he has a voice on certain platforms, but it's very clear that others are blacklisting him. It's the same thing as happening with Hedges. Like, they will not have him on. They will not discuss it. That's what I mean, very straightforwardly. John, if you were given the opportunity to get an idea put into motion in government, like free housing or UBI, what would it be? The complete transfer of all assets to the working class. Like, literally, I think that people like Galen Weston, David Thompson, the Irvings are complete and total worthless parasites. They should have no power or assets whatsoever. We should not care what they say or think. They should have no political influence whatsoever. We should not be interested in anything they have to say. And the only power that they have in the society is this little piece of paper that says I own it. And so we should be rid of them. And the way to do that would be to transfer all their assets into the hands of the workers. Create a series of trusts, the only members of which are the workers who are doing the job, and eliminate the other class, and that's the end of them. Bye-bye. That's what I would be moving towards. Like, I wouldn't be interested at all in negotiating at all with these guys, even for a second. And the louder they cried, the harder I would go. Right? That, like, if they cried about the tax rate that I put on them, I would just increase the tax rate. I go, just go harder. Because the more they cry, the better I'm doing, as far as I'm concerned. Like, and I do think that, like, I've said it several times on this stream, that it's absurd that we just don't have, like, a wicket at a Service Canada where somebody can walk into it and be like, hey, I need a house. And we just take one of the houses away from the psychopath class and give it to the person. John, won't that collapse the housing market? I hope it does. I sincerely hope it does. The housing market is evil. We should be rid of it, right? But I kind of consider that to be in the same vein of what I've just said, like a transfer of assets away from the psychopath class into the hands of the working people, right? Like, it's all the same idea, that there's a tiny group of psychopaths who have hoarded all of the assets by using a financialized system that they were born into, and they take the assets that they hoard and they withhold the benefits of those assets from us unless we sell ourselves into wage slavery. So how do you ameliorate that? And they're doing that with workplaces, they're doing that with housing, they're doing that with food, they're doing that across the board. So how do you ameliorate that? How do you eliminate that? Well, you eliminate them as a class. Because we're all working for a parasite class that provides no value and, in fact, provides a negative value to the society. And so how do you do that? You take their assets away and you begin the process of transferring those assets into the hands of the working people. You literally eliminate the capitalist class. And you don't negotiate with them, you don't talk to them, you don't have a conversation with them, you don't hear from their lobbyists. Like, they are worthless. They should be considered worthless. You should spend your time talking to 90-year-old grandmothers. You should spend your time talking to mothers and fathers. You should spend your time talking to the guy that mops the floors at the local Denny's. You should spend your time talking to nurses and doctors. You should spend your time talking to babysitters and nannies, right? You should spend your time talking to people who matter in the society, who actually do work and do something of value. And people like Galen Weston, you should just tell him to get a job and get the fuck out of here. Because he's worthless, and it's obvious that he's worthless. We should raise the tax rate of all earnings over, and I'll be nice and say $10 million. All earnings and assets over $10 million, we tax at 100%. We get rid of the idea of a billionaire in the society. We literally look at the idea of a billionaire the same way that we look at a pedophile, and we say that is gross, disgusting. It's to even desire it is like a pedophilic fetish. That's what we begin to do, and we begin to treat these people like pedophiles. Many of them are, of course. They go to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island and rape children. So the connection is right there. We insist that we pass laws, much how we pass laws against pedophiles, much how we pass laws against murderers. We say, okay, this type of hoarding is wrong, just wrong. We're not interested in it. And if you stand up and defend it, then we're going to inquire as to why you're defending pedophiles, why you are saying pedophilia is right, why you're insisting that billionaires are correct, when obviously they are not, and it is false. And we get rid of their assets, we get rid of their wealth. They no longer exist as billionaires. They no longer exist as asset holders or business owners or stockholders or any of that shit. And we distribute it into the working class. Like, if you wanted to do it as easy as possible, you literally would just raise the tax rate on all assets held and all income made over, and I'll be nice again, $10 million to 100%. And you just say to them, yeah, if you have more assets than $10 million, then sell them, or we'll take them and we'll sell them ourselves. Like, there you go. You want to spread the wealth around. You want to make sure that you're done with billionaires. You want to make sure that you take out the capitalist class as fast as possible, right? You just say, yeah, here you go. We'll take this existing system and just go right at the very top of it. John, that'll collapse this and collapse that. I hope it does. I hope it does. Like, everything you think is a negative, I think is a positive. Like, good. I hope it does. Like, I hope the housing market collapses. I hope that the wealth of a psychopath class collapses. I hope that it plunges the capitalists into despair. I hope they write articles about how, oh, we can't do business anymore because you can't buy slaves anymore. John, you're off by a couple of letters. They're all assholes, and it should be taxed that way. What did I say? And so you see why they've got to work overtime to shadow ban and blacklist people like me, right? For all their conversation about free speech, all they really mean is that they should be able to say the N-word, right? Like that's all they really mean, right? That they are not actually interested in hearing alternative opinions, because all opinions need to flow from a place that is pro-capital. And of course, the consequences of doing so could not be more devastating to us. Like, this is why we have to remain fundamentally stupid. Like, we have to worship stupidity. We have to continuously believe that the capitalist class has value when they obviously don't. Like, they obviously don't. Like, Galen Weston, David Thompson, the Irvings, Joseph Tsai, these guys provide no value whatsoever to the society. That what we have gotten by having a billionaire class is a deindustrialized country, a spreading of poverty, and a class war that the billionaires are winning. And what are they buying with the wealth that they are pilfering from the society? The destruction of human life. And a pedophile island, so they got that going for them. Like, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, scientists predicted Antarctica's February ice retreat after an extreme heat wave in January, when the temperature was the 7th warmest since record began 174 years ago. Antarctica will be going to experience more warmest years ahead due to climate change and global temperature rise. North Pole ice is melting at an unprecedented rate, and the pole region is nearly ice-free. Now the South Pole is bearing the brunt of man-made climate change disasters. Antarctica and its sea ice played a unique role in maintaining the world's climate dynamics. Antarctica holds 7 million cubic miles of ice and about 90% of the world's fresh water, produces a large amount of sea ice, and generates a cycle of cold water currents and an air mixture that surrounds it. Antarctic conditions influence the thermohaline circulation, also known as the thermohaline circulation. Hold on. Antarctic conditions influence the thermohaline circulation, also known as the thermohaline circulation. Come on. Come on, the Geopolitica. Which transports heat from the tropics to the poles and increases the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The continent's surroundings are pristine because there are almost no humans on the continent. Humans exist on the continent only for research purposes, and the continent does not belong to any nations. Yeah, who needs Antarctica when you have massive profits? Exactly. Like, what happens if all of it melts? If all the ice on Antarctica, Greenland, Canada's north, and the world's mountain glaciers melted, the sea level would rise by about 70 meters or 230 feet. It will devour all of the world's coastal cities, but cities deep within the land will survive, though sea level rise will significantly reduce land areas. Sea level rise would drown all Pacific islands, as well as Indian Ocean islands. The event will change people's lives, as well as the global economy, because it will drown all port cities from various nations and increase the distance between them. Only nations the size of the United States, China, India, Russia, and others will survive. The rest of the world's small nations will pay a high price for this catastrophic climate change. So 70 meters. Let's take a look here. Sea level rise map. Yeah, one of my favorite things to do. Haven't done this in a while. Launch. Get started. Sea level rise. Units. So this only goes up to 3 meters. Come on. Boo. Your graph sucks. Your map sucks and you should feel bad. Your map is bad and you should feel bad. Here we go. What do we got? What do we got? Only $9 a month. Start your 7-day trial. Fuck. Why is capitalism like this? Why is capitalism like this? So this is 70 meters. This is 70 meters. So you're looking major disaster for China, eh? This is something that surprises me about China's increase in fossil fuel production. But it's at the same time they've got to fight a war against America. Take a look at this, man. Hong Kong totally decimated. $9 a month so you can learn about your impending doom. Don't forget to donate. Fucking capitalism. Ho Chi Minh underwater. Look at this section for India. All of this. It is worth pointing out, it's not the end of human civilization. That'll come from the fire. That's what the fire will do. Bye-bye Florida. Bye-bye Florida. Holy shit. Straight up, dude. Whoa. Dude, this fucking takes out Memphis. I'm walking in Memphis. Like, bro. Holy cow, man. This is like God's wrath just coming to sweep away Florida. All of these Christians, basically, like... And you just know that it's like going to be the Floridian Christians. They'll be like, well, that's what we get for letting gay people exist. 70 meters makes me think of Beleriand from Tolkien. If you say so, bud. If you say so. Like, here in Canada, bye-bye Montreal. Straight up, bye-bye Montreal. You're gone. Jeez. Toronto will be fine. Totally fine. Yep. Although I'm sure that, like, there's got to be disruptions that are going to happen. Oh, no, there it comes. Oh, no. Yeah, no, Toronto's fine. Don't you think that if the sea levels rose, though, the Great Lakes would probably experience something? John, good to see you, bud. And Vancouver's toast, man. Like, Vancouver's toast. So, like, yeah, bye-bye Nova Scotia. The West just benefits largely. I mean, that's kind of a sick burn that's kind of a sick burn on Florida, dude. Fiddleford's basically just like, the West wins out. They get rid of Florida for free. Pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. I mean, like, Washington is gone. New Jersey, New York. Bro, New York. Like, this is not a win for the West, man. Like, New York. Like, Boston. It's a loss across the board. And I think the major difference, to if you want to compare it to China, the major difference is that China sees this all coming. Like, it knows this is going to happen, which is why it's building tons of cities in other locations, right? We heard about these ghost cities that China were building. Well, they were building those for this reason, so that people could retreat to them and have a place to go. None of that's going to happen in America. That the sea levels are going to come up like this, and people are just going to be like, well, just find a better place to live. Just sell your house and move. That's what Ben Shapiro literally says. Yeah, you'll sell your house and you'll move. What? Yeah, you'll just sell your house and move. What's the problem? Everybody has their house flooded. They'll just sell their house and they'll just move. What's the problem? Like, sell it to who, of course. Yeah, exactly. You fucking Aquaman? Like, poor Cuba. Poor Cuba. Like, and there's going to be no relief packets. There's going to be no, right? Yeah. My house in Alberta will be unaffected by the water. Alberta oil for the win. Don't mind the smoke that you have to breathe permanently. I'm really looking forward to the lunatic shit that comes out of the mouths of the fascists when the water levels actually come up and stay permanently like this. Like, what kind of crazy bullshit are they going to say about it? Like, because to me, like, right now we're in this extreme delusional place, right? Where people are just, like, extraordinarily delusional. And the moment that this stuff starts to happen, those people are going to, like, immediately change their tune and pretend like that this is what they always were saying. What a ridiculous place. What a ridiculous people. Daily food bank usage hits 40-year high. So while this shit's going on, right? While this shit's going on, boom. Yeah, the capitalists will be selling clean air as an asset, like they are with water now. Yeah, they'll start hoarding the clean air. Okay, guys, I'm going to use the washroom. 1 second. Miley, you don't need to come with me, bud. I'm literally just going over here to pee. And you have to know that's true, Milo. Like, you have to know. We've seen you do this 100 million times. Alrighty. You know, after all that climate change talk, let's play the tune. You guys know the tune. Your earbuds let you hear everything? You're welcome, dude. You're welcome. God asked a question about my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point in feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice. America is covered in ice. You know, I will always believe that we can do it, even when the water comes up, even as the deserts spread, even as we continue our assault against our own Creator. I will always believe that we can find the balance again. The earth created itself as a garden. We didn't do anything for it. We didn't earn it. We didn't work hard for it. We were given it as a gift, created for us by forces more powerful than we can possibly even begin to imagine. That the earth is more than capable of healing itself. Thank you very much. We don't need to create a carbon capture technology. We don't need to do something, invent something, be clever or resourceful. We just need to grow up and realize that if we want to be here, to witness the absolute miracle of the earth healing itself, then all we have to do is stop. That's what's so funny about it. Just turn off the machines. Just turn off the cars. Just stop. Walk into the middle of a field. Stare at the clouds. We seem not capable or interested even in pursuing what is obviously the simplest way. That I'm sorry about your toys. I'm sorry that we don't get to shoot rockets at space, or that billionaires don't get private jets anymore. I'm sorry that we don't spread a military across the world anymore. And I'm sorry that all your toys have to be taken away. But it's obviously what must happen. And we're more than capable of doing so. We're just choosing not to. And that's the God honest truth. I'm in a mood to play some songs, so I'm just gonna think. I was just a little boy when my mom and dad divorced. Through my tantrums, cried my tears, I'd keep their vows by force. Now that I'm an older man, I see it had to be this way. My love for them, it keeps on growing each and every day. Time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. Every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though they're not the people I expected they would be, well, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. 10 years, me and my wife, we traveled around the globe. Sacred vows and shared regrets, they filled our lives with hope. Then one day she tells me that a man is not for her. Those 10 years are a memory now, but my love for her still stirs. And time passed me by so quickly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though she's not the person I expected she would be, well, I love her all the same. I just want her to be free. My love had a little girl, a scrappy tomboy type. I watched her blossom like a flower, but she felt not quite right. Then one day she tells me she's a young man, not a girl. I picked her up and held her close and sent my son into the world. Time passed me by so quickly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though he's not the person I expected he would be, well, I love him all the same. I just want him to be free. And though they're not the people I expected they would be, well, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. I genuinely believe that if someone like I think that if someone like Willie Nelson were to sing that song at the Grand Ole Opry, that it actually does have the power. Maybe not to heal America, but it's got the power to persuade some people and to change some hearts and minds. Because it's such a silly conversation we're having while the world burns around us. That, and all of it, I find, all of it just stems from this denial that seems to exist amongst the political right, that perhaps the world is more complicated than you thought. Perhaps your creator is bigger and more creative than you. Fiddleford, what are these tunes? These are my tunes, mate. I made these. These are my songs. I like to whip them out every so often. Very good observations with them. Well, I mean, I I don't know. Like, there's a reason why the artists class needs to be destroyed in this country. And why they've... Have I updated my Bandcamp listing? I haven't checked. Yeah, I put them up on Bandcamp and kind of forgot about them, honestly. I haven't had the energy to be able to do any promoting or anything. Like, I don't even know where to really begin, honestly. And I feel like anytime I go out to like an open mic or something, it's like, I don't know, kind of Deadsville. But you gotta keep doing it. You gotta keep spreading the message best you can. No, I'm not saying that the artist class needs to be destroyed. I'm saying that the capitalists want the artist class to be destroyed. Because the artists are the ones that are articulating a new vision. The artists are the ones that are gonna say... The artists are the ones that are going to say, we gotta get rid. Yeah, I'm not saying we have to destroy the artist class. I'm saying that the capitalists need the artistry class to be destroyed. I haven't played this one in forever. Whoa! Sorry, guys. Whoa! Really? No. I'm old. I'm too old for that now. Gotta sleep another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. I give myself a C+ on that one. Been a long time since I played that one. Can they maybe send the attention downwards, though? I don't know what you mean by the comment, mate. Like the artists? Oh yeah, this one. I forgot about this one. Jeez Louise.
Get ahead of the human race, and we're the lazy ones working at the end of your nukes and your guns, and we don't even care. Bring on the doom, line up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. God let his chosen ones wander forever in the burning sun, and 10 times worse the fate for us. Forget him, worship the dust, cause we don't even care. Bring on the doom, line up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Baptize us with rising tides, and never let us see what hides inside, and cover our sins with dollar signs. The fire will burn away our pride, and you could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. And you chose this, cause we don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. We don't even care. Bring on the doom, light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon.
I mean, that's the idea, Fiddleford, but the reality is, like, we're pouring the creative energy of our society into lattes. That's basically what we're doing. That we're saying to the creative people in the society that if you want even a crack at being artistic or being any of that kind of stuff, that, well, you also got to pay your bills, and you also got to pay the rent, and you also got to do that kind of stuff. And so we have this whole service economy and this whole service industry that lied overtly to the creative side of the position that says, oh, this will be flexible and you'll be able to pursue your other stuff and all that kind of stuff. But it's not. It's not how it worked. And that if you want to see what, like, the cultural icon of today's society actually is, it's a latte. It's a coffee cup. That's the culture, is the coffee cup. That Starbucks is the closest thing we have to culture. And all of because everybody that's working at Starbucks is creative and artistic and all of that. But it takes energy to be creative and artistic. It takes energy. And anybody who says otherwise is just thick. And that's very sweet of you. It's very sweet of you to say, Compton. I appreciate that, bud. Maybe I should make an LP, actually. Do like an LP and try and like that'd be a real sweet little item. That'd be a really sweet item. Oh yeah, here's a good one. It's too high. It's too high. I'm gonna put it down here. Wait, there we go. This place is bottling. Now, too low. too low. My bad. This place is bubbling over. Your money you can keep. You know what? Fuck it. Sorry, guys. Sorry. This place is bubbling over. Your money you can keep. I'd rather while away my days dying in the streets than spend another moment sucking up to you. You can take this job, put it up your ass, and this is what you'll do. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out. Go away. Just go and get a job that doesn't pay the rent. Go get an education and drown in all your debt. The billionaires don't give a damn how hard they're screwing you. So let's all send a message and tell them what to do. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out. Go away. We're all in this together, so long as you do all the work. Slave away your better days to make money for some jerk. This deal ain't no kind of life, it makes me wanna scream. Let's round these motherfuckers up and get the guillotines. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out. Go away. Well, I don't think you're kidding, Cotton. It's just me getting off my ass and doing it. And if you're thinking about buying an LP, you know, you could donate to the cause. I'm just saying. If you need a bass player, I'm your guy. I made enough money playing to have needed to report it on my taxes. Well, John, that's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing that you've just said. This one I am gonna lower. This one I am gonna lower. These times they are uncertain that there is no doubt. These times they are uncertain of that there is no doubt. And nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry. I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine. He knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries. I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it
came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Huh. That's a good one. That one is getting older as I'm getting older. That right now, like my mom, she lives in Manitoba, you know, and she's a good woman, doing her best in Manitoba, but she's getting older, and I'm getting older, and I do wish that she was here. She's coming in May, so I'm going to take a little bit of time off the stream and see my mom in May. It'll be nice to see her. And I know that day is coming, right? And we all know that day is coming. And I know one day I'll play that song. And I know that she'll be gone. Oh, I know, Milo. I know. I'm playing a guitar, getting all weepy. I got 10 minutes, buddy. I took you down before the stream, specifically to avoid that. Oh. You know what, guys? My dog is getting real insistent. I'm only 10 minutes out. I feel like that might be a good place to stop today. A little bit early, but yeah, he's getting real desperate. So I think I am going to abide. How's the TikTok ban? It'll be lifted in a couple of days. I'll be back next week. I think the secret is I just got to be nicer to these kids. I just got to find a way to say the things I'm saying without being so mean. That's really what it is. Like, and I did learn a lesson, you know. I encountered someone on TikTok. Who was basically saying, "That's very kind of you to say, Zan. That's very kind of you." But there's this guy who was, somebody's put in my messages, they tagged me in this guy's video. And this guy's video was basically the classic, like, communism kills 100 million people, all that kind of stuff. And I just made a quick video saying to him, "Bud, this is like the classic CIA propaganda stuff." And he didn't do a video reply. He just came into that video's chat and said some dumb things that sounded dumb. But he left behind a book. It was The Red Famine by a woman by the name of Anne Applebaum. I believe it was Anne. And I was so just like, oh, an actual book. Look at this. Somebody who's actually reading. And so I took a look at the source, and I took a look at some of the criticisms surrounding the source, and just like, it's just a classic, like, it's true because we say so, source not found kind of situation. There's a great criticism on the Wikipedia page for the book
written by a historian, I believe I forget his last name, but he was a historian from the University of West Virginia. And he basically went through her whole book and was just like, she says this, but provides no evidence. She omits this. And it basically is just, you end up with a nationalist essentially espousing the same garbage that the CIA and the Nazis have been saying about the Holodomor for decades, since World War II. And the process of going through it really made me realize that, like, I do think that there are lots of good people who think that they're well-researched and well-read, because they are reading a lot of the propaganda and a lot of the CIA bullshit that's being put in front of them as if it's credible. Like, the woman that wrote this book is a Pulitzer Prize winner, right? Like, that's not nothing. Like, I can see how the average person would be like, Pulitzer Prize winning author writing about communism. Like, this absolutely has to be completely accurate. And they're not going to go do source research, right? And that would be unbelievable to believe that they would. The fact that they're reading the book in the first place is kind of unbelievable to me. Most people in North America are illiterate. Most people in North America are illiterate. And so the fact that this guy's even reading is like, oh, goodness. And so I made a video that I hope he saw that basically just said, like, look, like, basic critical analysis, and there are criticisms of these texts that you're buying into, show you pretty quickly that she's not providing evidence for her claims, and that there's a lot of evidence she's not showing you to support her point, or that counters her point. And it really, going through that process, and simultaneously while this is happening, I'm going through the TikTok ban, like the TikTok live ban. And it's kind of made me recognize and realize that, like, there are, I think, good people who have just been taken in. And that it's not all just illiteracy, and it's not all just stupidity. Like, these people are trying, and they are reading, and they are doing it. But the wall of propaganda is so thick, right? Like, the wall of propaganda is so thick. Like, the CIA, like, these organizations, NATO, like, these are multi-trillion-dollar organizations. These are the ruling class organizations. And so I can see how people would be taken in, and how easily it can happen. And conversely, what was so exhilarating for me about the process of going through it was how easy it was to defend. Like, how easy it was to defend. That I literally just did a Google search for the author, learned about the author, did a Google search about the book, saw that there were criticisms in the book list itself, and so clicked on some of those, read the criticism, the most credible one being from a historian from West Virginia, and just saw very clearly that she's not providing evidence for her claims. Right? So much for that book. And for as easy as it is, my hope anyway, is that for as easy as it is for people to fall into these traps, and this is a good trap, right? Anne Applebaum is a good trap. A Pulitzer Prize winning author. She works for The Atlantic. That's a good trap. So for as easy as it is for someone to fall for that trap, I feel like it's just as easy to pull someone out. But I think that my approach over these last few weeks and maybe even months isn't the right approach. That as frustrated as I get, especially with the TikTok people, as frustrated as I get, I think I do have to slow my roll. I do have to take a look, to plant my feet a little bit, and to start actually perhaps asking people. Because, asking people a very clear question. Where did you get this idea from? I think that this, for me, it might be the big learning moment and the big question. Milo, dude, what did you do? Is that I need to start asking people who say communism has never succeeded. Where did you get that idea from? Because they might actually tell you. And if they actually tell you where they got the idea from, then you can probably pretty easily show that it's a stupid idea coming from a stupid place. But instead of calling them stupid for holding on to that idea, even if they are, instead of calling them stupid and just dismissing them, you can just show them straight up. Where did you get that idea from? Well, you don't have any backing for your idea, so things provided without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And if somebody does provide you evidence, then you're going to be able to go through it, probably on the spot, in the moment, and be like, no, this is bullshit. And for me, I think that that's a valuable lesson to take away, and that's what I'm going to take away from this TikTok ban, and that's what I'm going to take away moving forward back into TikTok land, is I'm going to ask these guys, where did you get that idea from? Who's telling you that? You should probably stop listening to them. And if they can't tell you, then you can just ignore them. We don't need to insult them. I don't need to insult them. I don't need to pursue that. I can just say, look, you don't have any evidence. I don't need to believe it. Simple as that. Yeah, the wall of propaganda is insanely thick. The further left I go, the more I look back at books I've read and realize that my ability to critically evaluate academic literacy really is. Yeah. Well, and like we take things at face value. We were trained. Like, if I wanted to be really nice, and I mean, not even nice, I think this is actually accurate, that we were all trained from a young age to accept what we were handed by authority figures as unimpeachable. That books like 1984 or Animal Farm were considered like high-level academic texts that we were to take seriously, as opposed to just being kind of like storybooks that were obviously designed to tell us a narrative that the ruling class wanted us to hear. And it's that trust. Yeah, Steven Pinker's a good one for this. This sort of toxic positivity that Steven Pinker brings to the fore. And a guy like Steven Pinker, it's appealing, right? People like being flattered. People like believing everything's okay. People want to believe in these things. They don't want to believe that what they're doing is actually having enormous detrimental effects, no matter what they see or experience, right? They like, and you can see this. I always go back to him. You know who I'm going to say. Why is Jordan Peterson popular at all? Why is he popular at all as an illiterate, kind of clueless boob, right? Like, I can understand why people will be like, okay, yeah, rah, rah. But like, the idea that he's earned this reputation as being this big intellectual person when he's kind of a dumb guy, is like, when I encountered Peterson, I found him to be very helpful for myself because I was in a moment where I needed somebody to kind of to give me that boost. But the moment I started, like, people started to talk about this guy as if he was this like big intellectual. It's like, no, he's not. Like, he doesn't really know anything. Like, he's not really that smart. Like, not really. And like, and I don't think he's dumb, but just like, he's normal. Like, he's just a normal guy that talks big with words. Like, that's it. He just speaks robustly. That's all. But his ideas are not very well fleshed out or thought out, which is weird because he took 15 years to write a book. One would think that those thoughts would be fleshed out after 15 years, but they're not really. And But it's because there's a vacuum. It's because there's an intellectual vacuum in the society that the death cult needs to fill. And I think Pinker is like that. That we need to fill this vacuum that exists in the society with something. Because if we don't, then the working people will fill that vacuum, and they're going to fill it with something like Marx. Right? And so you fund these campaigns and get these intellectuals pushed out in front of you. Yeah, it's not just a wall. It's like a psychic root that is embedded deep in your worldview, ego, and id, and unraveling it is a painful reconfiguration. Well, and it's in many ways, I think it's very similar to being in an abusive relationship, right? We've always seen those people who, we've seen those people who are in like toxic relationships and they can't seem to get out of it. And even if they admit that they're in a bad relationship and they know they need to get out of it, they can't seem to find their way out of it, right? And I feel like for lots of people, like, and I've talked to people that politically have that kind of a position, that their position is, sure, capitalism is bad, but it's the best we've got, right? That's not too much different to somebody saying, sure, my boyfriend is bad, or sure, my husband is bad, but I love him anyway, right? It's not much different. And the idea that you dump your man and get a better one, or be single for a while even, it's just not on the table for these people, I think. Have you heard of the Midwestern Institute's book on leftist fetish culture, purity fetish, on leftist purity fetish culture? I haven't heard of that specific text, but definitely I'm aware of that, like the Western purity fetish. And I do see that on the left, that there is like a purity test that exists on the left. And so I think the biggest one that I've seen recently was the Rage Against the War Machine rally, right? So here is a anti-war rally that ostensibly all leftists should be in support of, but the left refused to support it. Not that the left is an organized force or that the left is capable of organizing itself, but the left's response widely was, oh, this is a bunch of fascists coming together to advertise themselves and all this kind of stuff. And my response very steadily became, you know what credibility have you got? Where's your anti-war movement? Like the WSWS, the World Socialist website, really lost a lot of my support over that. Because I was just I found what they wrote about it to be pretty childish and disgraceful. That we should reject an anti-war rally because the people who are participating in the anti-war rally don't meet the moral purity that we, inert Trotskyists sitting on our ass doing nothing, exert. It's so arrogant. It's the arrogance of it that gets me. That like these and the idea that we should dismiss writers and thinkers like Chris Hedges for his participation in the rally because there's also some people there that we don't like. Like too bad. Where's your anti-war rally? Where's your leftist wing? Why are so many credible leftists silent on xenophobia and the pushing of this war with China? They don't want to target. They don't want to get targeted. Like, the McCarthy purge is real. Like, it's real. Like, it's, and I think that lots of, and I mean, there aren't that many credible leftists in the first place, right? And so, like, who's actually going to stand up and say this shit? Okay, guys, Milo is like crawling all over me and definitely needs to go down. So I'm gonna call it. Have a good weekend. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles. Think about donating to the Patreon. It's in the description. It helps support me, helps support my little pug. I hope you're all doing well out there, guys. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.